Hello and welcome to Big Closet, Small Planet, brought to you by the C&A Foundation, the H&M Foundation, the Rylander Foundation, and Tencel. This pod is done in partnership with Ecotextile News and Planet Textiles. I'm Mike Schrager. So we continue with exploring exciting new ideas and innovations that have the potential to transform our industry for the better. Today I have with me Lea Esterhuizen. I think I just destroyed it again, didn't I?
Esterhuizen.
Oh my goodness. Oh, what's more important is what she's doing. She's working with an organization called And Wider. So tell us, Lea, what is your role at And Wider? What do you do there?
I'm the founder and CEO of And Wider.
And my understanding is you're not only an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur, as some people would refer to it, but you're also an academic. You have a PhD. What's your PhD in?
In methods for gathering sensitive data from scared populations.
Not a small thing. So can you describe the nature of the problem for our audience?
So we know that there are approximately 500 million workers working along global supply chains, and a chunk of those are working in clothing, because we all know that the clothing workforces are the largest of the bunch. To give you an idea, when you look at the kind of supply chain of an average retailer, average clothing retailer, when you look at how many workers are registered on those in that supply chain, as hypothetical example, you can factor in that there'll be 5 times more invisible workers than visible workers. So there's a serious problem with invisibility, and brands know it. They know that the existing tool in the toolbox provides an incomplete picture. They're under huge kind of reputational pressure, and there's huge reputational risk in the social media era, and there are new laws obligating them to monitor working conditions in their supply chains. So, the drivers are there, and they're starting to move. We just want to move faster, because if we wait and we're too slow and too patient, there are workers who will lose lives qualitatively, because they're spending time in workplaces that are not as healthy as they should be.
And often in these contexts there are new terminologies being used. For instance, modern slavery or slave-like conditions. Given your expertise, what is that in terms of, is that a different situation than what we've heard about previously, with people not getting proper wages or not getting good health environments to work in? Is this a different type of situation?
There's a very clear legal definition, Mike. A modern slave is a person who is unpaid, who cannot leave the workplace. They're contained or locked in, physically unable to leave the workplace, and that they experience coercion regularly.
How many in the textile value chain fit that definition, you think?
We don't know. The closest we get is a global figure on modern slavery, but it's a very tricky ask to measure the size of an invisible population.
Makes sense.
So I'm not even going to throw a figure at that, Mike. I'm a data scientist. I need the evidence before I try.
Okay, fair enough.
It's safe to say that essentially what we are eating, wearing, using today will involve forced labor. And unwittingly, we're supporting those working conditions. And forced labor, we mustn't become obsessed with just forced labor. That's the highest volume on a spectrum. So exploitation is not okay either. So it's just about equipping ourselves as businesses and consumers and a sector with the data we need to drive improvement. It's all about improving.
So tell us what you're trying to solve with And Wider. What is the problem you're trying to address?
We I'm assuming anyone interested in sustainability cares about the workers who made, picked or packed what they wear and use and eat today, and yet we know nothing of their working conditions. And neither do the brands that buy from their workplaces. So, and wider makes those working conditions visible.
Okay, and how specifically do you do that?
We place automated calls to workers' mobile phones. And it's a 5-minute call in the language of the worker's choosing. And that produces a kind of traffic light rating for the workplaces in which those workers work.
Tell me, how does the technology work in a little bit more detail?
Sure. So it's a cloud platform, which makes it very scalable. So we engage with the supplier, they register on the system, on our cloud platform, upload their workers' numbers. We send all the materials they need to share with workers through our platform. The supplier then shares those with the workers, and then the calls that are pushed through the platform begin. And a week later, all the calls are done, the results are available on the platform with simple login credentials. And what's important to say, Mike, is that yes, we're tech-enabled, but we're not a technology company. So essentially, gathering data on working conditions is a sensitive matter. The workers are scared, but they're not the only ones. They're scared of providing candid feedback on working conditions in terms of what ramifications it will have for them. The suppliers or employers are scared because they're allowing a third party to engage with their workers. And what happens if this third party finds something out about my workers and their working conditions. And thirdly, the buyer is scared because they don't know what they'll find when they start hearing directly from workers, and they're not certain about how much they'll be responsible for doing something about what they find when they start engaging with workers. So essentially, our business is specialized in navigating those different kinds of fear. And you need people to deal with fear, which is such a human-centered reaction. So we have the technology on the one hand, but we have a very, very talented support team on the other, who essentially ensure that the workers and the suppliers and the buyers are confident and capable of using the system. And to ensure, very importantly, that the results are used responsibly, that the buyer as well as the supplier understands how to use those results to drive material change in workers' lives.
And so why do we need that? Because I know that there's a whole industry around reporting, auditing. Why is this essential?
So currently, the most common tool used for monitoring working conditions is called the social audit. And the social audit relies on a model that comes from the 1950s, where you have an inspector walking onto a workplace on a scheduled day or within a scheduled week. And how that inspector works is they then interview workers face-to-face on their working conditions. We know that produces a workplace at its best, wearing its Sunday best. So our intention is to enhance that picture that the auditor has by including anonymous data direct from workers that includes the experience of the most vulnerable workers.
And so what have you found? Have you found that you're catching situations, catching challenges that in the normal circumstance are not being addressed?
Correct. Certainly. So we do offer and contribute our results to auditors often. We work with a lot of audit partners, for example, and those auditors are often quite surprised and grateful for insights they wouldn't have gathered on site themselves. And those insights are often on the more extreme issues, as well as the more subtle issues like discrimination and disrespectful communication. We see approximately a third of the sites improving their site score because they get a color-coded score for working conditions overall. But behind that color-coded score is also a score out of 10. The higher the score, the better your performance, ethically. And we see a significant rise in site score for a third of the sites, approximately, that we're covering within one call cycle. So that's within within a period of about 10 to 12 weeks. So that's very encouraging. So sites are actually literally upping their game within weeks of starting to use our system.
Wow. So what do you think will increase the likelihood of this getting adopted? Is there things that need to happen for this to become a mainstream approach?
Essentially, to accelerate our impact, we need to enter as many sectors as possible and as many subsectors as possible. So, for example, in clothing, we currently working with brands. We've got 5 clothing brands, and they tend to be monitoring predominantly factories and predominantly hotspots. And what we need to do is start to demonstrate what this looks like at scale, because it's not that we should only be listening to workers in areas where there's a crisis. That's important, but that's forensic. We should be listening to workers across the board so that we can anticipate and prevent crises. So we should, every worker deserves to be heard, and it's a very scalable system, very, very low costs.
So given your experience now in introducing a new way to enhance working with workers in the supply chain, supporting them, ensuring their situation improves, how receptive do you feel the textile industry is to your ideas, to innovation overall? If you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not so receptive, 5 being extremely receptive.
You're going to get a data scientist's reply, Mike. 4.5. And the reason why
That wasn't so bad. I thought you were going to give me a long list of extra decimals.
4.5 because what we see amongst not just our clients, but the clients, the prospective clients we're in quite serious conversations with in clothing, is they're ahead of the pack. We also work extensively in FMCG and other sectors. And our clothing clients move faster. You don't have to convince them about the problem. They know it, they want to fix it, and they're already hungry for innovation. The interesting part, Mike, is fast fashion has been toxic for sustainability in fashion in many ways. But fast fashion has also taught brands to be fast and agile and innovative in keeping up with consumer demand. And what that means is they're good at kind of hunting, spotting, and integrating innovation.